This podcast is brought to you by Proton Dealership IT, experts in dealership cybersecurity and IT management. Interested in a free cybersecurity, compliance, or IT consultation? Visit protontex.com. That's PROTONTECHS.com.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, October 31st, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, a key supplier to VW and BMW slows output as the Nexperia crisis intensifies. Ram is getting its first ever SUV in 2028, and the IRS gives auto lenders a break on big beautiful bill reporting rules. Plus, Jessica Gonzalez of Informed.IQ joins the show to talk about the latest concerning forms of fraud in the auto lending space.
Just knowing that it's out there, knowing it's a trigger, there's a number of things that you can kind of take in effect.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Dutch chip maker Nexperia has suspended wafer shipments to its Chinese assembly plant. It's a move that deepens the conflict that's already tightening global semiconductor supplies. In Germany, supplier ZF has cut shifts at its main electric drivetrain plant because of component shortages. Meanwhile, Bosch is preparing to scale back hours at another facility. The moves underscore how the trade rift between China and the Netherlands is rippling through automakers' supply chains. It's forcing companies such as Volkswagen and Stellantis to scramble for chips and brace for potential production disruptions. Ram is expanding beyond pickups and into the SUV market for the first time. Starting in 2028, the brand will build a Michigan-made SUV alongside a new midsize pickup in Ohio. It's part of Stellantis' $13 billion U.S. investment plan. CEO Antonio Filosa says the U.S. remains a key priority for Stellantis with new products, including revived SRT performance models and the return of the Hemi V8, aimed at strengthening the company's foothold. Analysts say the move could help Ram keep loyal truck buyers in the family and fill capacity at plants that once built Jeeps. And the IRS is giving auto lenders extra time to prepare for new reporting rules tied to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Under new temporary guidance, lenders will only need to tell borrowers how much interest they paid on auto loans in 2025, without having to file the same information with the IRS. The agency said both lenders and the government need more time to update systems before full reporting begins in 2026. The new law lets buyers deduct up to $10,000 a year in interest on vehicles assembled in the U.S., though the benefit phases out for higher income earners. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Now joining me to talk about Ram's entry into the SUV market is Vince Bond Jr., who covers Stellantis for us at Automotive News. Vince, my man, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thank you.
So Vince, why is this move into SUV such a big deal for Ram, and how could it reshape the brand's identity in the U.S. market?
All right. Well, going back for a second, so a few weeks ago, Stellantis announced they were going to invest $13 billion into their U.S. manufacturing operations. And one of the things they mentioned was that they're going to get into the large SUVs. They didn't say what brand. And so now this week, Antonio Filosa said that Ram is going to get that large SUV. It's going to be built in Michigan at the Warren Truck Assembly Plant. And this just represents, a major shift for that brand, since they've been established. I think it was around 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. But during that time, they've been all pickups and vans. And so this really kind of expands their footprint well beyond those models. And maybe we'll see some a Wagoneer style Ram. We're not sure what we're going to see yet. But this really just takes them to a different level, puts them on par with brands like, Chevy and Ford that, they do their, big SUVs and pickups under those brands. And now Ram will do the same thing and try to compete in that area. So this is a big shift.
Yeah, because you say Ram and Wagoneer, and we obviously don't know what this thing's going to look like. But for some reason, Vince, why do I keep thinking Durango? Like, why do I think this thing is going to somewhat look like a Durango? And I'm probably completely wrong.
I would just say it's not going to, because it's being built at Warren Truck already, and that's really the truck plant and the truck platforms. So at some point, I'm pretty sure that I'm guessing right here. I'm guessing this is not official, but I'm assuming that the next Ram SUV is going to be on their Stellar Frame platform, for electrified body on frame vehicles. And my assumption would be that they're also going to shift the Grand Wagoneer to that platform as well in 2028 when the SUV comes out. And so, yeah, it's going to be on this big platform, not a smaller vehicle like a Grand Cherokee or a Durango.
In your story also, you write that Stellantis is monitoring the Nexperia chip crisis. What's the automaker saying at this point?
Well, Antonio Filosa, the CEO, mentioned yesterday that Stellantis has a war room that is, doing day-to-day updates on this thing. They're following it, around the clock. Because as we all saw a couple years ago with the chip shortage, I mean, that changes everything with production. Some vehicles have to stop production while they save chips to put, to more important vehicles. And so it's really a disruptive thing. And the whole industry is watching to see what's going to happen because this is not what we need. The industry is trying to build momentum right now. And if we go back to a couple of years ago where we couldn't even produce vehicles the way we wanted to because of this chip shortage, I mean, this could just be a major weight on the industry at a bad time.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Vince, because ever since I've even started working at automotive news, I feel like there's always something. It seems like the moment you think that the industry can take a breath and just chug along, boom, something happens. You have a chip crisis or you have tariffs. So, I mean, like we always say, the industry is resilient, but we're interesting to see how this Nexperia stuff plays out.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, something's always changing. Presidential administrations every 4 years, automakers almost have to go back to the plain book and rewrite it. So we'll see what happens.
Perfect. Vince Bond Jr. covers Stellantis for us at Automotive News. Vince, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Coming up, there's a new form of digital scam in the auto lending space that's harder to detect. Informed.IQ's Jessica Gonzalez talks about it next on Daily Drive.
Automotive News Shift podcast brings you the latest on automotive technology, trends, and transformation. I'm Hannah Lutz.
And I'm Molly Boygon. We're the new co-hosts of Shift, and we're excited to bring you new conversations with experts and industry insiders like this one with Larry Dominique, president of LD Management Consulting.
I do believe the legacy OEMs are falling into a trap. They've got to find a way to, in some ways, build a new airplane while they're still in flight.
Catch Shift, available every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
While you provide top-notch support to your team and customers every day, is anyone taking the time to ensure your sensitive data remains secure? Just one click on a malicious link can place your entire dealership in danger. In fact, the average cost of a data breach surpassed $4 million last year. Stay one step ahead by understanding the threats and minimizing your risk. Proton Dealership IT works around the clock to provide you support 24/7, 365. Operating out of a cutting-edge security operations center located in the USA, Proton continuously monitors, detects, and responds to your potential network issues or cyber threats. You've got a lot on your plate. Keep your focus on where it matters most, your customers. Learn more about our comprehensive services at protontechs.com. That's PROTONTECHS.com.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Auto dealers and lenders have battled familiar threats: synthetic identities, falsified pay stubs, and fake employers. But a harder to spot scam designed to outpace traditional fraud detection methods is gaining ground. Jessica Gonzalez is Vice President of Customer Success and Lending at Informed.IQ. She spoke with Automotive News Senior Retail Editor Dan Shine about this digitally engineered tactic that is simple but devastatingly effective.
Jessica, welcome back to the F&I Friday edition of Daily Drive.
Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate being here again with you.
So we talk a lot about fraud when we talk on F&I Friday, and it seems like it's always kind of a whack-a-mole situation where it's just you're trying to keep the lenders are trying to keep one step ahead of the scammers out there. But you've kind of come across something that's a little bit more, it's not that kind of document-based fraud of like fake IDs or phony employment records, but something in the digital world that seems a little bit more nefarious and harder to track. Tell me a little bit about kind of this new kind of scam that you're seeing out there.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, it's always whack-a-mole out here. Fraudsters get more sophisticated, but hopefully we're also getting sophisticated. The good thing is that we understand the methods that they are kind of approaching these things, and we have the same kind of technology and methods to understand those approaches and then be able to kind of combat those. So even though it is whack-a-mole, hopefully that we kind of are proactive instead of just reactive. We have seen in the last 12 months in the auto finance sector about 50 billion of net charge-offs associated to fraud or misrepresentation on documents as well as proof of income. And so that's a huge number, right? And it kind of keeps increasing, not just in auto, but we see it in mortgage, we see it in luxury apartments, we see it just across the board. But ultimately, they're getting more sophisticated, trying to understand how to do that. So the big thing was fraud pay stubs, like you said, documentary validation. We've kind of gotten a hold of that. It seems like most people either have a manual way to combat that, or they're using AI technology. And then we kind of got to the bank statements, self-employed. We're seeing a lot of stuff in commercial now. The newest trend that we were talking about was circular bank statement transactions. What that means is that people are inflating their income. So historically, most lenders want 2 to 3 bank statements, and they want those bank statements to prove out that your deposits match what you're saying within either a pay stub or a document. So this is also for self-employed or gig economic workers. And so, you're trying to give opportunity across, different sectors as well as different areas within the economy. But you really want to also make sure that you're addressing some of those, fraudulent behaviors or concerns. So what we're seeing is, 3 or 4 months prior to purchasing a vehicle, people are kind of inflating their income. They're making really large deposits into the account and then taking that account and, saying 2,000, 3,000 and inflating their income with the anticipation that they're going to have to purchase a loan. People have done this.
I'm sorry to interrupt it. So this is like a digital wallet, as
Yes.
opposed to a traditional bank, as like they're kind of like padding these accounts, like in a
Yes,
Venmo or a Cash
exactly.
App. Okay.
Yeah. They are
Okay.
padding the
Sorry. Go ahead.
account. So you hear about this kind of like in mortgage, right? Like in a bit much bigger scale where, you don't want to see large deposits, right? So if you go purchase a house that are like, don't make any large purchases, don't put a lot of money in your account. That's not traceable, all of that good stuff. And what it seems like is that now they're kind of taking that in a smaller scale and doing that with bank statements. So, kind of what the trends is that, knowing what those high risk indicators are, we're also seeing correlation with high risk employers. So a lot of people say like, how are you combating this? Because, it's a car, it's not a mortgage. Do you want to really take out 6 bank statements versus, 2 or 3 that you're already historically doing? What we're really saying is that be proactive about what you're doing. The good news is that this is an issue. The rate of loans that are going to go bad, it increases by 400%. So if you do see circular bank statement transaction, the likelihood that it is going to go bad is very, very high, but it's not at the high rate of what you're seeing for bank statement and pay stub misrepresentation. So just knowing that it's out there, knowing it's a trigger, there's a number of things that you can kind of take in effect. Looking at high risk employers, looking at occupation associated to what is that income, having a data network that allows you to see proof of income that has already been submitted. There's also a lot of correlation between income that was stated and then stated, in 2 months later. So they stated it was 50,000. They come back 2 months later and they're stating it's 100,000 income. You're seeing a lot of that high correlation. And then that's kind of where they're making these kind of padded bank statements, if you will.
And then part of the scam is that they pad it, and then as soon as they get to okay, that money is rerouted or withdrawn or sent elsewhere on from that digital wallet.
Exactly. So they put the money in, they pad the account, and then they're taking the money out to use that same money. And then it's kind of just like writing a check, if you will, right? Associating accounts and then writing that until it's due. And then, they may have a credit card that they're making all of their other expenses on, making that their, inflated income for this associated account, putting all their money in one account, transferring it over, using maybe a credit card on the side. That's not going to hit when they're also getting their credit pulled for an auto finance. So they're just kind of playing with pockets of money and then trying to show that they don't have debt and that they have a higher income than associated.
Is this kind of an individual thing, or is this more of like a ring, an organized, ring syndicate that might be kind of perpetrating these acts?
We see both. Of course, the syndicates, the kind of higher rings are the ones that we worry about the most. What is good news is that the syndicates, the larger ones, are using kind of recycled bank statements as well, in addition to padding these. So what we're seeing is real bank statements, transactions, but then also adjustments on them. And so, what helps out is that, when you talk about synthetic and fake IDs and creating these accounts, when you do it at a larger scale, if you do have a network of income like Informed, you're able to identify those abnormalities and kind of what we call data collisions. So employee ID or even Zelle transactions that shouldn't occur, so that even though it is more likely that they're going to go to loss, the larger ones, you won't be hit with 10 accounts going to loss, right? Maybe just one account that goes to loss. So at an individual level, we are seeing it. And then there have occurrences that we have identified for a larger scale.
When we talk about auto lending, is the end game getting a vehicle that they kind of steal, or is it just getting the money, the loan that they don't really qualify for?
At the individual level, they're seeing it's kind of getting a vehicle that they don't qualify for, which results in that net charge off kind of almost immediately, defaulting. And then in the larger scale, it is being able to get a vehicle and then offload those vehicles. So what you're seeing in the, larger scale syndicates, you're seeing that they're actually offloading the vehicles themselves. So no intention also to pay, but also to take the vehicle and then go. Whenever it's an individual one, you're not getting hit with as many losses at that level, but you're also most likely can recover the vehicle. So your losses, take a less impact, versus if you're doing a large scale, their intention is not only to fraudulently purchase the vehicle, but also make as much money as possible, which means more losses for the lender.
And do these scammers typically use stolen or synthetic ID, or are they posing as themselves?
Once again, the personal one is themselves, and then the larger scale ones, it's going to be a synthetic ID. And like I said, they're purposely kind of creating them. So the same premise of synthetics ID, that they're creating fake identities and doing, it's actually helping them because they're making somebody look like they have true intention to purchase other things. So what we're seeing is that this credit line also has other purchases on it. It's not just an auto finance. So it's even harder to detect because, they have bank statements. They have, savings accounts. They may have other credit cards, like I said, because they're using credit cards to also put away this other money and then associating to padding in the accounts. We're also seeing kind of transactions where we're seeing credit cards that are being paid off and then using that extra money to go and pad the account. So kind of a transfer of credit card debt as well. And so, like I said, that all makes these synthetic IDs look really real to others. Especially if you're, used to looking at credit lines and saying, okay, there's a good history. There's a transaction that looks like they paid off their credit card this month. And so you're seeing things that would be associated to potentially a good buyer that makes it even riskier.
And finally, what can auto lenders and dealers look for to kind of ward off this scam before it really takes root there?
So like I said, the data is still reading. What's great is that, identifying the trends as soon as possible. So having a ability to see network of what is happening in the industry is really critical. And then, like I said, understanding some of those trends. So there's easy things to implement once you realize what the trends are. Like I said, we're seeing high risk employers coming out of this. And so when understanding what those are, what are the keys, so that you can just do a quick trigger so that you're making your staff aware that they can actually, take into consideration those. So it's just really knowledge of the trends. There's other proactive things that you could do. Like you said, it's whack-a-mole out there. So, somebody will come up and say, let's start, addressing this. I always advise people, just don't swing the pendulum too far right, too far left. Just be aware that, this is occurring. It's not a huge amount of occurrence at the moment. When it does happen, it is associated to a much higher risk of fraud. Like I said, 400% more likely to go default. But, being aware of the high risk employers, putting in those proactive one, there's other indicators as well that you can look for. And then really having that network and industry standards of letting you know what is going on out there, making sure your portfolio is being addressed and looked at from that perspective is important.
Jessica, always great insights from you, and little bit troubling, scary scenario that you kind of laid out for us, but I really appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Dan. Have a great one.
Jessica Gonzalez is Vice President of Customer Success and Lending at Informed.IQ. She spoke with our own Dan Shine. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Vince Bond Jr. and John Hutter for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on finance and insurance, the Nexperia chip crisis, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back over the weekend for a special edition of Weekend Drive about this week's Japan Mobility Show. We'll hear from our own Hans Grimo and Larry Bellaquette from Tokyo about the highlights and some of the lowlights.
These are the lengths to which Mazda thinks it needs to go or imagines going in the future maybe in order to keep the rotary engine alive and relevant. It's a real modern day science project they've got on their hands there.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we cover today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.